Hi.
Hi. Okay, so I have with me Vivian Kubrick, who's an all-round amazing human being. She's also a composer and
Thank you.
a what term I want to say film director, but that's not really correct, is it? What should I be using to describe
I
you?
would I would say I'm probably I don't know what I am. I think I'm just sort of banging about in this universe trying to make sense of it. That's probably who I really am.
I'm
But
brave enough to advocate for Julian and WikiLeaks, which is exceptional.
well, my feeling is about Julian that he is just one of many, many, many people on this planet that has tried through millenniums to make this world a sane and livable place. And in fact, I was just reading, um, uh, uh, oh God's sake, what's his name? Ah, uh, A History of Western Philosophy by Russ Russell. What's his first name? Anyway, it doesn't matter. And I was reading the section about Plato's Utopia, which I was astonished to realize is virtually the reality we live in now. And, many people, I think, probably only read Bertrand. There we go. Bertrand Russell wrote a really amazing book, The History of Western Philosophy. And I'm not joking, people. If you want to freak out, read the chapter Plato's Utopia, because you will literally see that the elite of this planet are literally fulfilling his vision with some very key points missing, i.e., any kind of humbleness or service to the whole. But in every other respect, the breaking up, well, actually, it's called One Royal Lie is to be told. And even the rulers are to believe this lie, which is that there's gold and silver, bronze and iron people. In other words, the commoners are the bronze and iron, and the soldiers are the silver. And of course, the guardians, it's almost like a science fiction, the guardians are the gold. And he believed that this fiction was important in order to sustain society. And anyway, I really do think I almost feel like getting out the book and reading the whole chapter, which of course would be a hopeless thing to do. But I really am desperate for people to read this, because as I was reading it, I was going, oh my God, this is like exactly what they're doing. And the whole thing is about lying to people. And I also indulged in reading a bit of Julian Assange this month and looking at his appraisal of an empire essentially being the communications that go between all of its arms, right, in order to maintain its empire. You just tell me to shut up when you want to say
I
something.
am loving this. Are you kidding me? I'm sitting here like, yes, you read Julian. Yeah, tell us what you read. Like, do it, do it.
Well, the thing is what I found so interesting, because then as I was reading it, and it was very simple. It's essentially Plato's Utopia. You do the royal lying, right, in order to maintain happiness for everyone, and everyone minds their own business, right? I wish I could tell you all of the aspects of Pluto, yeah, probably would be Plato's ideas, because literally this is 2,400 years ago, and I feel like maybe a bunch of skull and bone people read chapter 14 of Bertrand Russell's A History of Western Philosophy and went, yes, this is it. This is what we really have to, make happen. And the thing that Julian is doing is he is unraveling the royal lie, and they don't like it. And they've maintained themselves pretty much with lies always. Like uh, Bertrand gives the example of the Japanese people buying into the lie that the emperor of Japan is the either the chosen or the product of the sun goddess or something like that. And they knew that the first group of people would go, "What? I don't know about that." And then they said, well, in a couple of generations, they'll buy it. And they did. And what Bertrand's point is that people will buy the lie. And in fact, buy many lies. In fact, if I may quote my father, what was it? The smaller countries are whores and the bigger countries are the pimps, or something like that. That people are willing to take all the kind of public relations part of the US government, or indeed make deals with them in such a manner as to effectively, temporarily believe the lie, right? I mean, I've no doubt that there's some naivety, but I'm sure that every government, every, person who's negotiating with the United States understands that this is a controlled fight to the death. I'll hold your hand for a bit and then I'm going to let go, and what I think Julian has done is that the royal lie, or the many royal lies, cannot sustain themselves in the presence of hard facts in the form of in-your-face documents. And unfortunately, and I think we've spoken about the spirituality of life, and to me, that is the reality. We live on a planet of spiritually buried beings, so buried in their consciousness that they take part in actions which I truly believe that if they really were in their right mind, if they really had a raised awareness, they would not do it. They would not do the things they're doing. And, that whole, I remember that from being a child, those posters of, women holding flowers out to soldiers, and it's saying, if they gave a war and you didn't come, there wouldn't be one, or something like that. The soldiers part of Plato's Utopia, right? They are some of the men and women that I have the most charged up emotions about, because they take the most, I think many of them, the most honorable and also the most misguided positions on the planet. And the fact is, the guardians couldn't do a bloody thing without the soldiers and the police and all the bureaucrats that are holding the whole thing up. And if I may stop talking in 1 second, I think also of Hannah Arendt. Do you know Hannah Arendt? Have you ever heard of her?
You are now the third person
Oh, really?
consecutively to mention her. Chris Hedges mentioned her, Mehdi Taleb just mentioned her, and now you are. But I suspect that all three of you will do so in a different context.
Well, actually, I was thinking of reading this because I do think that this is so pertinent to what Julian's experienced. Now, do you mind me doing this?
I absolutely do not mind at all. Someone just said in chat, I am enthralled. She has 100% of my attention. So please, let rip. Let rip.
Well, let Hannah rip, because this woman, she has the most piercing intellect. I've read her book on the Eichmann trial and the banality of evil, and it is truly an awesome piece of work, and also her book on totalitarianism. But this happens to be titled Crisis of the Republic, Lying in Politics, Civil Disobedience. Sorry, it's like practically black, the screen on the top, so I can't read the bit. But anyway, this is so pertinent. Lies are often much more plausible, more appealing to reason than reality, since the liar has the great advantage of knowing beforehand what the audience wishes or expects to hear. He has prepared his story for public consumption with a careful eye to making it credible, whereas reality has the disconcerting habit of confronting us with the unexpected, for which we were not prepared, which frankly I think Edward Snowden, the revelations of Chelsea Manning, and all the other stuff that WikiLeaks has brought to the world, and of the journalists that took advantage of it and reported on it accurately, it brought those lies out to the forefront for humanity, for those that were willing to look at it. And I think it made it very difficult for people because they found it so hard to believe that they'd been so horribly tricked. But anyway, let me go on. Under normal circumstances, the liar is defeated by reality, for which there is no substitute. No matter how large the tissue of falsehood that an experienced liar has to offer, it will never be large enough, even if he enlists the help of computers to cover the immensity of factuality. The liar, who may get away with any number of single falsehoods, would find it impossible to get away with lying on principle. Of course, I think of that wonderful phrase, plausible deniability. Yeah. This is one of the lessons that could be learned from the totalitarian experiments and the totalitarian rulers' frightening confidence in the power of lying, in their ability, for instance, to rewrite history again and again, to adapt the past to the political line of the present moment, or to eliminate data, the old memory hole, that did not fit their ideology. Anyway, I won't go on because honestly, Hannah, I mean, you could just keep going. It's like page turning brilliance. But what Julian has done is he took that principle of lying and he pushed it in their face so hard that I would think, sorry, I'm again thinking of something else that I was looking at today, which was the Freedom of Information Act. And I went on their line, online to look at their stuff if you want to apply and what you should know. And honestly, I was like killing myself laughing. It was the most absurd list of all the different reasons that you wouldn't be able to get the information, and that you should like, if anyone wants to go to the Freedom of Information Act page, go to, I think, research or something like that, and you can find all of the various exceptions and what are they called? I forgot now. But anyway, it's hilarious. I mean, what we're looking at is Plato's utopia. You have to maintain the, one royal lie. And I mean, obviously the lies are now so extraordinary in terms of the complexity of the amount of lying that's going on, that really there is nothing but WikiLeaks to save the day, because we are never, ever, ever, ever going to be told what they're really doing. I mean, look at how we all were like, I certainly, when I read Edward Snowden, and you've been going through it, I really must watch that actually. You've been going through all the documents, looking at what exactly the NSA was doing. But at the time when I was looking at it in The Guardian and I was going online, I was just like going, what? Oh my God. Like, I always had a feeling that not all was well, but the extent to which we are monitored, manipulated, the way that all the policies going on between different countries are not what they seem. And even if they ever are close to what they are really doing, the long-term play, the game that they're involved in is out of our reach, is out of our power. And I think that if it wasn't for WikiLeaks, we wouldn't even have the taste in our mouth of the glory of truth. I'm going to stop because I may be just capable, and I won a talking match at school when we drove. No, I'm serious. We drove from London to Wales, and the teacher thought this would stop us from pulling our hair and jumping around on the coach. She said, we're going to play a game and each one of you has to talk, without stopping, or going and ah, and then your other pair. And I thought, oh, I'll do that. Anyway, by the time we got to Wales, there were kids like trying to beat me up to make me shut up because I still hadn't stopped talking. So I'm not going to stop.
Vivian, I've got news for you.
What?
You are what is known as the speaker in these events.
Thank God.
And also you have a riveted audience who before, when you said I could go on, they literally said, go on! Exclamation mark. So if there's ever a format where you can talk to your heart's content, this is certainly it, and you have avid listeners. So please do not restrict yourself. It's absolutely fascinating.
Well, thank you so much for your graciousness in the face of my chatterboxness. But truthfully, I talk so passionately. I mean, if you was to have me talk about, the repairing of tires, I probably wouldn't go on so long. But this is stuff of my soul, and I imagine everybody watching this. This is the stuff of our being. That's why. When I spoke to you before, to Elizabeth, and I said that, Julian was Christ-like in his willingness to become the center point, the target, and to really, allow himself to be crucified. I mean, not so that he could be crucified, but that realizing in order for this to be a reality, for WikiLeaks to exist, he and the other people involved, because I'm sure that he's not the only one that gets attacked at WikiLeaks. They had that eternal consciousness, that awareness of, even if I'm putting words in their mouth, at the very least they care about the future of mankind, which is a form of eternity. But I just think that unless many of us just do away with, the reality as it's presented, and actually focus on what we know is important and what we know is true, which is why this vigil is a beautiful platform for anyone in order to join in and watch, or anyone who's a guest on or part of the vigil. It's our opportunity to sing out the eternal song of consciousness, and to bring about, even if it's just between each other, the happiness and the joy that comes from knowing when you're doing something right. Now, I know plenty of people, spin out this thing of like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But really, I would say that phrase identifies more than anything else that's true, because we don't have enough information, and we don't have enough information because we are controlled to within an inch of our lives in terms of the access we have. And I guess the internet was a very interesting kind of slightly spinning out of control that they did, knowing that once everyone was on the internet, then they would be able to scoop it up and kill it. And that would be the end of our ability to communicate. And maybe not, because they're so good at this, not kill it so we can see it dying, but manipulate it so it might as well be dead, and then actually becomes a weapon against humanity. Because, even the brick and mortar stores are struggling in the face of online, business, which frankly, I love Amazon. I hate Jeff Bezos, but I love just being able to sort of quickly do things and to buy books. And I love iTunes. I love watching, but I'm painfully aware of the price that I'm paying for doing that, for getting all my books on Kindle. But, to walk around with my little iPad filled with, 2,000 books and audio tapes and things, it's like, well, I couldn't resist it. I just couldn't go to that place of going, I will not take part in the gruesome, because that's the thing. Not everything is bad. Even wicked people doing bad things, it's not always really going to end that way. They can actually perform their own destruction. And frankly, I think that is a very key part of the truth of us as spirit beings. I think really, really wicked people, deep, deep, deep down, they are good beings, and they know they're doing terrible things. And as long as they keep altering reality for themselves and justifying their actions to themselves, which is, frankly, the guardians at this point are those who have been educated in Harvard and, Yale and Cambridge and Oxford, where they, remember, Plato's Utopia wanted the rulers to buy into the one royal lie as well. And so the promise of power, this is, honestly, this is all about seduction. All of this, even a journalist who's seduced by the top job at a newspaper and seduced into living out his ambition as a journalist, will he tell the truth? Now, Julian has done that in spades, along with the other people that have helped him and the people that gave him the documents, and you guys, and, all the, disobedient media, Zero Hedge, whoever the people are that are trying to get the truth out there. But I suppose what I want most of all is for people to start noticing. They don't have to go overboard and sort of, dive down 400 rabbit holes and, become suicidal looking at all of the horrible things. But definitely people have got to start, piercing through the illusion of what our apparent life on this planet is about. And we've spoken about that when we just chatted on the phone, the whole concept of being an eternal being. And no matter what price you pay, again, I think of Socrates. In fact, I don't want to misquote him, and it's such a beautiful thing that he said. Maybe people know it, but often you don't ever remember what someone really said. I just think that this is the type of human beings that you're inspiring, that I'm inspired by, where we're looking way beyond the physical sacrifices that any of us may make, or our own danger or whatever. And we think about the really long game, the one of, will we as spiritual beings either escape this present universe? No one's, got a, what's the word? The full lowdown on, are there other universes? Are there other dimensions? Are there other realities? But I've always been very fascinated by these things. And I think once you start researching this, and once you have your own experiences, you realize that there is a lot more to our existence as beings than simply that I'm sitting in Florida and you're sitting in Russia. Oh, you've gone. Where have you gone? I've lost you. There you are.
I'm right here. I'm right here.
Oh, I lost your picture. Anyway, I've lost you again. What's going on? Anyway, let me find this thing. Is your picture going out because there's something going wrong?
No, it's okay. If you can't see my picture, I'm still sitting right here, and you'll see it again. So don't panic.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Plato's Utopia. Let's see. What was I looking at? Oh no, that was Socrates. Hang on a sec. I have to look at these notes. Let's see. Actually, there's so many good quotes here. Oh, okay, here we go. Am I still? I'm disconcerted by the black screen. Have you gone? Have I been disconnected? Suzie? Hello, hello, hello. Well, I don't want to read this. Not until you're here. Well, just in case you're all still waiting and you're listening to me, I do hope that you don't mind me reading these quotes, but I just think that there's nothing quite like the actual, well, what's the right word? Well, from the horse's mouth, so to speak, albeit through Plato and not Socrates himself. From David. What is this? Oh, what's participant?
It's telling you that you're still online.
Oh. Sorry, I saw another message. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Good. So are you there, Suzie?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So this is Socrates in the face of his imminent death by drinking hemlock. He says to the men that have brought him to this tragic end, he says to them, I would have you know that if you kill such a one as I am, you will injure yourselves more than you will injure me. Nothing will injure me, not Miletus, nor yet Antus. Probably mispronouncing that. They cannot, for a bad man is not permitted to injure a better than himself. I do not deny that Anytus may perhaps kill him, or drive him into exile, or deprive him of civil rights, and he may imagine, and others may imagine, that he is inflicting a great injury upon him. I think this is, I can't figure out who's talking to who, but hang on. But there I do not agree, for the evil of doing as he is doing, oh my God, hang on, I'm reading this all wrong. Basically, the evil of unjustly taking away the life of another is greater far. And that when he's saying, if you kill such a one as I am, you will injure yourselves more than you will injure me. Nothing will injure me. And for me, that is the truth of all of us beings, is that, yes, we can lose our bodies, we can be, drop the body in any way, shape, or form. But we as consciousnesses, we as beings, however you want to visualize this, we not only go on, but we go on in every way, bringing what we did with us. And I think that the way in which people that were, for instance, within government who know that they are doing great evil, and yet they still do it, perhaps under the idea that there's nothing after life. So there's this kind of cynical recklessness. And that cynical recklessness is what Julian is up against, I think, because possibly there are people that are religious within the whole workings of the elite, but somehow I seriously doubt it, because I just don't think there can be a religion short of Satanism that would permit people or allow themselves to do such terrible things to the planet and to their fellow creatures. So I don't know whether you heard what I was saying.
The religion is money, right? The religion is money. The religion is power.
Well,
the idolatry.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard for someone like you and me, or the people listening, to imagine what kind of state of mind you would have to get to, where you would be willing to destroy millions of people. And this is the one thing in war that really irritates me. I mean, that's not even the right word. It horrifies me. Is that where they always talk about the human death, they never talk about the untold number of animals and other living creatures that are murdered in these wars, poisoned, blown up, or all the animals that they use in the military in order to test, their bullets and see how the wounds are. Or if you've ever watched those horrible nightmare movies of the atomic bomb experiments where they sort of tied goats to fences, to see what would happen to them. To me, all of this boils in horror in my head, because I'm trying to think what has happened to this consciousness that it is so bereft of empathy, so unaware. And thinking of that 50% of the scientists in the Manhattan Project said that they thought there would be a chain reaction and the whole world would blow up, and they still did it. So I don't know that we're really going to get beyond where we are unless a much more grassroots spiritual movement, not that we all start following a particular leader, a spiritual leader. I mean, and this is going to be tough, you evolve yourself. You pierce through all the different realities. And to me, maybe I'm giving too much of my own reality onto Julian, but I just cannot believe that Julian doesn't have that similar vision, because I can't think of any other being that would have such a strong grasp of truth, of why that's important, unless you have this innate, well, I always thought this, even though I was never brought up religiously at all. I mean, my family life was completely non-religious. I always thought to myself that when Jesus Christ acquired such a following and it turned into an actual religion, that everyone kind of missed the point. He was saying to them, be like me, raise your consciousness, right? He wasn't saying, you know, pray to me and beg me for forgiveness. He said, come on, you know, get with this new vision of life. And I'm still flabbergasted that people are so lost in this fact that they could be Jesus Christ. They could raise their consciousness. They could act in a way that is what I think Christ wanted. I think Christ was a real person, that it launched into yet another controlling religion is, you know, probably one of the most tragic, almost laughable examples of how poor the level of awareness is on this planet. You know, how could you miss the fact that we're all supposed to get up there, not go down and go, shit, I'm sorry for being such a sinner and a piece of shit. I'll probably do it next week, but, you know, I'll say 5 Hail Marys and then, you know, hopefully I won't go to hell. That kind of thinking, again, I go back to Plato's Utopia. People are indoctrinated with these lies. Their inquiry, their individual pursuits are crushed to maintain this guardian, soldier, commoner hierarchy. And I'm still reeling from the fact that this description that Bertrand Russell gives is almost literally what's going on. I mean, it makes, like I said, it makes me feel like they're like, that was their like Bible. They didn't bother to read Plato. They just read Bertrand's version of it. But anyway, please.
There are two things I'd point out there. One is that Julian is very much a philosopher, and
yes.
and he is surrounded by philosophers. If you look at his closest friends and those who he works with, even from the birth of WikiLeaks as an organization, it was birthed from a philosophy that was engineered by a group of people, one of which was Julian. And it was based on this philosophy of they'd closely examined and theorized about how they could counter the problems of the world. And WikiLeaks was their philosophy in action. I think that's significant. Yeah, we had an Australian philosopher on earlier today who was a part of that group.
Oh,
was on WikiLeaks.
What was his name?
Simon Floth.
I'm going to watch that after.
And we also had Slavoj Žižek, who is a very close friend of Julian's, who is another philosopher, Eastern European philosopher. And Srečko Horvat is another close friend of Julian's, who's a Croatian philosopher. So there is very much a strong history of philosophy that is really like the underpinning of the organization and those who support it.
I mean, how could it not be? Of course. I mean, in order to do what they do, in order to coordinate what they do as well, is that you have to have a mission. And I know that Julian wanted to stop wars, but believe me, there are far more terrifying things going on than the wars that go on. I mean, I was talking to Elizabeth about this when, after I spoke with her, I was tweeting back and forwards with her on the whole eugenics program going on this planet, which is killing. Their hope is to kill billions of people, which far outperforms any war. And you know, it almost like causes my brain to just sort of go "Urgh," and just stop when I try to think
the size
about
of it, the size of
well,
it,
the size of it,
scale.
but yeah, but also that thing that Hannah said, that the one thing that outdoes the lie is the reality. There's no substitute for that. So while we still have the internet, and you know, I'm amazed. I watch a lot of things on YouTube, and I'm going, my God, I'm amazed that's on there. There's still the chance to get this truth out, and for people to start, you know, taking action, because that's what they depend on. They depend on a socially engineered, you know, lied to on every possible imaginable level, public. And I keep wondering, like, well, I keep wondering what is the story of this planet, because it sure feels like, oh, you've gone again. Anyway, it sure feels like, can you hear me? Have we gone? I get so disconcerted when the screen goes black.
No, it's fine. It's just hiding my camera when you're speaking, and that's totally fine. It allows me to multitask when I'm here and I'm looking at you and I'm listening to you.
Okay. Oh, because you're looking at the comment, or what?
I have a dozen things on the go. God, I'm a mother. I can multitasking is my thing.
Oh, okay. All right. It's just weird because then I'm talking to you and then it goes black, and then I kind of feel a bit like, you know, when you're on the cell phone and you go, hello?
Can you not see yourself? It should have a nice big window showing you yourself.
Yeah, no, I've got a big window of you and a small window of me.
Oh, that's why. Okay, you don't have it on the speaker view. Oh, I understand. Okay.
The speaker view. What's that? Oh shit, how do you do it? I don't know. I'm not going to press anything because then I'll probably like cut us off. Look, I want to read something else because I think, again, this is Julian, and I think this is all right. Let me just hang on 1 second, people. Let's see where this is. So this is very important, and why I was looking at the Freedom of Information Act site, because I was interested to see how obstructive it is. And of course, it's like a comedy reading their various stuff. It's really worth looking at. Anyway, so Julian is saying here, while national archives have produced impressive collections of internal state communications, their material is intentionally withheld or made difficult to access for decades until it is stripped of potency. This is inevitable, and as national archives are not structured to resist the blowback in the form of withdrawn funding or termination of officials, that timely, accessible archives of international significance would produce. What makes the revelation of secret communications potent is that we are not supposed to read them. The internal communications of the US Department of State are the logistical byproduct of its activities. Their publication is the vivisection of a living empire, showing what substance flowed from which state organ and when. Diplomatic cables are not produced in order to manipulate the public, but are aimed at elements of the rest of the US state apparatus, and are therefore relatively free from the distorting influence of public relations. Reading them is a much more effective way of understanding an institution like the State Department than reading reports by journalists on the public pronouncements of Hillary Clinton or Jen Psaki. I don't know how you pronounce that. Anyway, what's so important about that is that is why he does what he does, because everything else is a public relations, if not an actual psyop for the rest of the world. But most importantly, it's material put out for the consumption of American people, because obviously, if the true horrors of what was going on and the lies and the manipulations and all of it was discovered and made real and people could have it, people could finally say, holy shit, this is really what's happening, I don't reckon they'd be able to carry on. I mean, for one thing, I'd hope anyway, the military and the police would simply go, hey, we're not helping you in your efforts here. And for those that would continue to help, it's only in a very selfish, in my imagination, a very low frequency being type behavior that they hope to excel within the evil hierarchy. And that's why I think ultimately this whole situation is down to a spiritual movement that has to happen, a raising of awareness and consciousness to the point where people simply won't tolerate this anymore. And I think, unfortunately, too many people are still very, very much locked into the illusion. And I think they can't cope. They can't face the evilness of it. It's, I think most people have absolutely no idea, no experience of that level of evilness. And so when they're faced with it, they just go, no, 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 that can't be. That it must be because they mean this and that and the other. They just can't make it real for themselves. And that's why I think also if it's possible, because I know Julian will get out, he will. I just don't think they've got enough nerve, and I think Julian's too strong as a being for them to completely do him in. But he's going to need help, and that's what we're doing, even if it's just in raising awareness of his plight, because that was the thing that was really pissing me off. And I heard Elizabeth talking about that earlier today, is that just there's almost a news blackout on him.
The only news that does come to pass is manufactured.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, in terms of the smears and whatnot, I mean, they're not random events. When The Guardian runs a 6-piece mini-series full of smears of Julian, I mean, they've crafted them, they've planned them and crafted them.
Okay, yeah, because that's something, when you go, which I really advise everyone to do, just to get a sense of the depth of the madness of this, to the Freedom of Information site. I just want to read something else that Julian said. Where is it? Oh, yeah. So check this out. The anatomy of the US empire. Each working day, 71,000 people across 191 countries, representing 27 different US government agencies, wake and make their way past flags, steel fences, and armed guards into one of the 276 fortified buildings that comprise the 169 embassies and other missions of the US Department of State. They are joined in their march by representatives and operatives from 27 other US government departments and agencies, including the Central Intelligence Agency. Essentially, this is like death of the planet by bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy is now as efficient. And, Pravda, I never read Pravda or translations of it, but I certainly understood it was sort of for the Russian people. That was pretty much all the news they got was from Pravda. Well, the sophistication, the level of sophistication of imprinting stories, literally made up stories in order to manipulate people. Julian's story, he's free to leave anytime he wants. We talked about that last time. That's absolutely the most amazing piece of fiction. And yet I can't tell you the number of people that have, tweeted me and said, oh, shut up about it, Julian. He can leave anytime. And it's like, that is the pain that we all have to bear. Like, how much effort are we going to make to get the information, right? And most people don't make any effort. They watch something on the news, they hear something on social media, they read something, and the powers that be, all those various departments, institutions, the NSA, CIA, they depend on people just, you know, giving a cursory glance at what's going on in the world. And that's how they get away with all this shit. Jesus Christ, even with Edward Snowden and all the revelations that came out from his documents, all the revelations that WikiLeaks has, given to the world access to, right? I'm hard pressed to find a single human being to talk to about these things who isn't like, oh, I know, I don't know, I haven't read that. Oh, I know, Edward, is he what? And it's just like, wake up, you fucking idiot. You're going to get ridden over. Anyway, I shouldn't say fucking idiot, but that's where I again go into this thing about consciousness. And I think that from my experience, even with people who are bright and brilliant and creative, it is astonishing the level of their awareness, or indeed their lack of awareness of God, even themselves. So I'm really hoping that Julian and yourself and my very, very small circle of friends that I have who I feel like are at a similar level of awareness, realizing that we are like, if you could imagine, an entire continent of snoring and sleeping people, and we're just a few people stepping over bodies, looking around going, oh my God, how do we wake them? I know that sounds patronizing maybe to some people, like bugger you and you thinking you know more than I do. I know that I know more about what's important. And I know that the fact that there's almost nobody in comparison, right? Coming forward and defending in outrage what's happening to Julian. I mean, unless everyone's just spineless, cowardly people, which is also possible. But why? Why don't, vast numbers of Congress get up in arms at the outrages of the NSA? Why don't they?
Because they represent agencies that are customers or that are beneficiaries in some way, shape, or form of that information. I mean, the NSA, we know from the Snowden documents, has absolutely no respect whatsoever for the congressional overseers. So you would think that the congressional overseers would be a bit harder on them. But the NSA documents also show the incredible lengths that the NSA goes to control the flow of information to the congressional and Senate oversight boards and committees. In their own documents, they say we have a specific office called the Congressional Liaison Office, and only all information that goes to Congress or Senate must pass through this office and must be handled by this liaison officer. And they talk about things like adverse budget effects. They don't want the Congress or Senate to be given any information by that liaison office, which might impinge on their ability to secure more funding or get more money. It's just a giant scam, basically. And it's not just in America. It's in the partner countries as well. So in New Zealand, we have a 5-member parliamentary board overseeing one of which is the Prime Minister, and 4 other ministers are supposed to oversee the intelligence agencies. One of those was Russell Norman, the co-leader of the Green Party in New Zealand, who were part of the previous coalition government. He said that he learned more from reading Snowden files than he ever learned while on the Parliamentary Oversight Committee of the intelligence agencies. Basically, the heads of the intelligence agencies would roll up at the meeting and say, everything's sweet, everything's fine, no problems here, nothing you need to know about, no, nothing to report, all hunky-dory.
I mean, I can't help but think that they have I keep using this word, patronizing viewpoint that they know what's best. And again, I go back to this Plato's thing about this one royal lie. I think they are lied to, and they think they're doing something, good. This is why I keep harping on about, spiritual awareness, because you just couldn't pull this kind of thing, you couldn't pull over on someone, this kind of bullshit, if they were at a much higher level of awareness about what's important. Like they would know there was something up by the fact that they were being told to fob people off with a load of bollocks. They'd know something was up. And they would then feel like they can't do that. And they would stop it or they would expose it. But they don't. They just, so I just don't think it's possible to have the kind of planet we have unless you've got people who are profoundly unaware to the point where they are almost like firing circuits instead of conscious beings, reacting instead of, contemplating and making a right action. I did want to read something else, by the way, because I just think that it's important, and I can't actually remember what it is, but I'm going to look on there. I don't even know what time it is. What time is it? Oh, we've got like 1 minute left. I'm going to read something then if we've got 1 minute left. Is that all right?
Go for it.
Okay, let's see. Bloody hell. Am I in the right place? No. Just hang on. Okay. Well, look, I'm just going to read this thing that I was mentioning. Plato begins by deciding that the citizens are to be divided into three classes: the common people, the soldiers, and the guardians. The last alone are to have political power. They are to be much fewer of them than of the other two classes. In the first instance, it seems, they are to be chosen by the legislator. Now, I'm going to say the legislator is probably who the elite think they are. After that, they will usually succeed by hereditary. But in exceptional cases, a promising child may be promoted from one of the inferior classes, while among the children of the guardians, a child or young man who is unsatisfactory may be degraded. Now, I mean, I'm sure this is Plato thinking he's being awfully fair. But let me just get to this other...
That is disturbingly representative of how it works.
Absolutely. And now, here's the royal lie. Hang on a sec. Oh, this is something else which I thought was very important. This is, I think he was a sophist. I can never pronounce these bloody Greek names. Thrasymachus. There is no question of proving or disproving. The only question is whether you like the kind of state that Plato desires. If you do, it's good for you. If you don't, it's bad for you. If many do and many do not, the decision cannot be made by reason, but only by force, actual or concealed force. So they are trying to hold back what they know, because we don't want to be culled by being poisoned by food and vaccination and horrific drugs and pharmaceuticals. We don't want all our privacy completely taken away and us spied on and manipulated and socially engineered. And yeah, if enough people got pissed off about it, they would have to use tremendous force, which I know they probably have figured out already. So what they prefer is to conceal the force that they are using against us. And to the degree that
deniability. The number one principle of these intelligence agencies is deniability. That's how they're obsessed with it. They're obsessed with maintaining deniability, and that's exactly what you're saying. Is that by using this coercive secret force,
concealing.
Sorry, by using the concealed force. It provides them deniability.
Well, and it also, meanwhile, is still force used against us to keep us out of the know, and if we're not careful, dead. So on that charmingly happy note, I would just like to say really, really well done, all of you, for doing this amazing vigil. And I'm going to catch up with that bloke. What was his name again? The guy that was
Simon Floth.
Yeah, I'm going to watch him.
So
well
it would be nice to think that we're going to finish this event and all go and have a well-deserved rest. But in reality, we're going to finish this event and start cutting all of the streams into hour-long interview segments that we can re-release on the YouTube channel and push through social media. One of which will be yours, one of which will be Simon Floth's, and 35 odd will be, other guests who've appeared on the stream. So keep an eye out for that, because it's probably a bit easier than wading through 30-something hours of footage.
Oh my God. No, 38, 40, 41.
Yeah. And I still had people today emailing me and requesting spots, even after there weren't any more spots to be had. So I can tell you that absolutely for sure next month is going to be even bigger, even longer.
Well, I was thinking, I was imagining that you would get more and more people to be guests, and each person would get equally smaller amounts of time until you've got loads of people, even just coming on for 5 minutes. Just to build it, I know that that's going to happen. I hope that it doesn't have to happen. I hope.
Well, we're up 300% in 3 months. So
wow.
I think it's pretty remarkable.
No, but I meant that he gets out, for God's sake, and he gets, protected repatriation to Australia. But look, I'm going to get off because I might launch into something else.
Well, you're actually, time's on your side, because I'll tell you what's going to happen next.
Okay.
Our next guest is not yet here, but he's working on it. So next.
Okay. Well, then I'll read something else if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. Go for it.
Okay. Because I just want people to read Bertrand Russell's A History of Western Philosophy, this one thing, his interpretation probably of Plato's Utopia, because it's a wake up. I mean, I remember when I read Aristotle's assessment of how to run a society, and it was literally 2,400 years ago, a description of our present CIA and NSA. I mean, it was just awesome. I should have dialed that up, but I can't find it right now. But I've got to find this next one. Hang on a sec. I just want to read the oh yeah. So this is about justice. Because this is the I can't find it right now, but essentially the idea that justice exists is to not know that justice is only at the I really should find it. I'm not going to try and paraphrase it. Hang on. Buggering shit. Excuse me, swearing.
Yes, we have a priest in the room now, so no pressure. Our next.
Oh, is he there? Your next guest. Hello, Father Dave. You didn't hear what I said.
Actually, shall we bring him on with you?
Yeah, I'd love that.
Considering we've just gotten into philosophy and we've gotten into spirituality.
Absolutely.
Our next guest is Father Dave, who, believe it or not, was Julian's boxing partner in the Ecuadorean Embassy, because Father Dave, as well as being a religious man, is in fact a professional boxer. I'll just add him to the panel.
Hi, Father Dave.
Here we go.
Are you there, Father Dave?
He will miraculously appear in a second or two. I've just added him.
Oh, I love this Zoom thing. It's too much fun. I was using it with a friend of mine. I'm glad you introduced it to me.
Oh, he has just disappeared. Uh-oh.
Oh.
He's on panel. Here we go.
Hey.
Hello. Hi, Father Dave.
Hello, welcome. Father Dave. I don't see him.
He's muted. Hold on one second. Yep, I can see him. Hello, welcome to the stream. Uh-oh, Father Dave, your audio is not working. You're unmuted, but we cannot hear you.
I'm trying to get a different view so I can see him when he comes on.
He's
bloody
gallery
hell.
View. No swearing at them. Yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much. This is Vivian Kubrick.
Nice to meet you, Vivian. I've been listening to you for a while and interested in all your philosophical thoughts. But my first degrees at uni were in philosophy, so Plato and Socrates are close to my heart as well.
Ah, well, I don't hear you that well. So if I kind of act like an old lady and go, what? It's because I can't hear you that well. Anyway, Father Dave, over to you.
Oh, well, you're going to read for us, Vivian, and then I'll let you go. Oh,
I didn't want to. Okay. Well, hang on a second. No, Father Dave, you speak because I can't find this. Hang on.
I was going to hear it, so I'm happy to.
Oh no, I want to find this particular one. I tell you something. The significance of men from 2,400 years ago essentially describing the realities that we have now, including Aristotle, with this incredible paragraph he writes about essentially an ancient world NSA and CIA that he's describing. I actually put it on my Twitter as one of my first tweets. I don't know what, I know that you're a Christian man, but to me, this seems so suggestive that we just keep going round and round, rebirthing into new bodies, and that the same old chestnuts keep trying to forward their dastardly schemes. And now I know that's probably mad in comparison to what you think, but I put it there.
Love your work, sister.
Anyway, listen, I really don't want to cramp your time with me waffling. So I'm going to say goodnight to you both. And it was lovely to meet you, even though I don't know if you can see me or not, but I can see you. I love your groovy running Father Dave jacket that you've got on. Is that a runner's jacket?
It's actually, I think it says Father Dave Race Team or something. We do a lot of things out here.
Anyway, listen, you have a lovely time with the beautiful, wonderful, and exceptional Suzie Dawson. And I'm going to say goodnight.
That was highly complimentary.
Signing off.
I'll speak to you later, Vivian. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, God, you're so welcome. And prayers for Julian and his ultimate freedom and victory over the bastards, excuse my swearing, of this planet. And now I shall say goodnight. If I could figure out how to turn myself off, which I probably will spend 5 minutes trying. Okay, bye.
Good stuff, sister.
Oh, she's amazing. She's amazing.